Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Maya.
And I'm Ethan. It's wonderful to have you with us today. Whether you're listening while driving, cooking, walking, or simply relaxing, thank you for spending some time with us.
Let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever woken up in the morning, looked outside, and thought, today just feels heavy? Nothing terrible has happened. The weather might even be nice. But somehow your mind has already decided that it's going to be a difficult day.
I think almost everyone has experienced that. What's fascinating is that the world around you hasn't changed in those first few seconds after waking up. The only thing that has changed is the story your mind starts telling you.
Exactly. And that's what we're exploring today. Today's topic is the psychology of positive thinking. But before anyone imagines we're about to say, just smile and everything will be okay, let's clear something up.
Positive thinking isn't pretending problems don't exist. It isn't forcing yourself to be happy when you're hurting. In fact, psychology suggests something much more realistic and much more powerful.
We're going to talk about why our brains naturally notice problems before possibilities, how our everyday thoughts quietly shape our emotions, and why small mental habits can completely change how we experience life over time.
And if you're learning English with us, you'll naturally pick up useful vocabulary and expressions as we talk. No lessons, no pressure, just a meaningful conversation.
So, grab your favorite drink, settle in wherever you are, and let's explore why the way we think matters far more than most of us realize.
Can I tell you about something that happened to me recently?
Of course.
I was standing in line at a coffee shop one morning. The line was long, the person in front of me kept changing their order, and I remember thinking, this day is already going badly.
Just because of a long coffee line?
Exactly. Looking back, it's almost funny. Nothing serious had happened. I was healthy. I had work I enjoyed. It was a beautiful morning. But my brain zoomed in on one small inconvenience and treated it like evidence that the whole day would be terrible.
That's such a human thing to do.
It really is. And psychologists actually have a name for it. They call it negativity bias.
That's a phrase listeners might hear quite often in psychology conversations.
Yes, it simply means our brains naturally pay more attention to negative experiences than positive ones. Thousands of years ago, noticing danger helped humans survive. If our ancestors ignored a hungry tiger because they were admiring a sunset, well, they probably didn't become our ancestors.
So our brains evolved to protect us.
Exactly. The problem is that today our brains often react to emails, traffic, or awkward conversations as if they're life-threatening dangers.
That's interesting, because sometimes we blame ourselves for being negative. We think, why can't I just think more positively? But maybe the first step is realizing our brain isn't broken. It's simply doing what it evolved to do.
That's a really important distinction.
And maybe if you're listening right now, you can think about your own morning. What was the very first thought you had after waking up today?
Don't judge it,
Just notice it.
because awareness is often where change begins.
You know, this reminds me of a friend of mine.
Oh?
She started a new job a few years ago. Every evening we'd talk, and she'd always tell me about the one mistake she made during the day.
Just one?
One small mistake.
What about everything that went well?
That's exactly what I asked her. She'd say, well, my presentation went well. My manager thanked me. My team liked my idea. But... And then she'd spend 20 minutes talking about the one sentence she wished she'd said differently.
I've definitely done that before.
Me too.
It's amazing how one uncomfortable moment can become louder than 10 positive ones.
Eventually, I asked her something. I said, if another person had exactly the same day you had, what would you think about them?
That's a great question.
She laughed. She said, I'd probably think they had a fantastic day.
Isn't that interesting? We're often kinder judges of other people's lives than our own.
Absolutely.
There's another psychological idea that connects to this.
Go on.
It's called self-talk.
The conversations we have inside our own minds.
Exactly. Most of us speak to ourselves more than anyone else every single day. The strange part is, we rarely notice what we're saying.
It's almost like background music.
Right. Imagine two people make exactly the same mistake during a meeting. One person thinks, I always mess things up. The other thinks, well, that wasn't my best moment. I'll do better next time.
Same event, different conversation.
Different emotion. Different confidence. Eventually, different life.
That's powerful, because the event didn't create the feeling by itself. The meaning attached to the event did.
Exactly. Research suggests that our interpretation of events often influences our emotional response more than the event itself.
Which means positive thinking isn't about lying to yourself. It's about choosing a healthier interpretation when more than one interpretation is possible.
That's such an important difference. Optimism isn't saying nothing bad happened. It's saying something difficult happened, but it doesn't define my future.
Can I ask everyone listening something?
Go ahead.
Think about a challenge you're facing right now. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's learning English. Maybe it's a relationship. Now ask yourself one simple question. What story am I telling myself about this?
That's a surprisingly difficult question.
It is. Because sometimes the story sounds like, I'm too late. I'm not smart enough. I always fail.
And after hearing that story enough times, it starts feeling like a fact.
Exactly. But here's something we'll explore next. How do those stories become habits in the first place? And more importantly, can we actually retrain the way our minds respond?
That's where positive thinking becomes much more than a motivational quote. It's where psychology becomes practical.
You know, I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings about positive thinking. People imagine it's something you either have or you don't, almost like eye color. You're born optimistic or pessimistic, and that's the end of the story.
Yes, but our brains are much more flexible than that. There's a concept in psychology called neuroplasticity. It sounds like a complicated word, but the idea is actually very simple.
I was hoping you'd explain it.
Think of your brain as a forest. Every thought you repeat is like walking along the same path. The more often you walk that path, the clearer it becomes. Eventually, it turns into the easiest route to take.
So if I spend years thinking, I'm not good enough, that path becomes wide and familiar.
Exactly. Your brain starts using it automatically because it's efficient. It doesn't stop to ask whether the thought is helpful or even true. It simply follows the path it knows best.
That's both comforting and a little scary.
Why comforting?
Because if the brain can build those paths, maybe it can build new ones too.
That's exactly the hopeful part. Research suggests our brains continue changing throughout life. We can't erase every negative thought overnight, but we can slowly strengthen healthier ways of thinking.
Which means positive thinking isn't pretending the old path doesn't exist.
Right. It's choosing to walk a different path often enough that it gradually becomes easier.
I love that image. It feels realistic. You're not trying to destroy the forest. You're simply creating a better trail. This reminds me of something that happened when I was learning to drive.
Oh, I have a feeling there's a lesson coming.
There definitely is. During one of my first lessons, I became so nervous that I made a small mistake. Nothing dangerous, but I was embarrassed.
What happened next?
For the rest of the lesson, I couldn't stop replaying that moment in my head. Every new decision became harder because I kept thinking, don't make another mistake.
I've noticed something similar. When we're focused on avoiding failure, we often stop noticing opportunities to succeed.
Exactly. My instructor finally said something I'll never forget.
What did he say?
He looked at me and smiled. Then he said, "You're driving while looking in the rearview mirror."
Wow.
At first, I didn't understand.
But he wasn't talking about the car.
No, he meant my mind. Physically, I was moving forward, but mentally, I was still living in the mistake I'd made 5 minutes earlier.
That's such a powerful metaphor.
It really changed the way I think about everyday life.
Because so many of us do exactly that. We keep driving forward while staring at yesterday's mistakes.
And then we wonder why the journey feels so difficult.
Can I challenge one idea, though?
Please do.
Sometimes when people hear conversations like this, they think we're saying they should replace every negative thought with a positive one. That's a really important point. I don't actually think that's healthy.
Neither do I.
Imagine someone loses their job. If they immediately say, everything is wonderful, it probably won't feel genuine.
In fact, it might make them feel worse.
Exactly. Psychology talks about something called cognitive reframing, and it's often misunderstood.
That's another phrase worth explaining.
It simply means looking at a situation from a healthier angle, not denying reality, but asking whether there's another way to understand it.
So instead of saying, "I lost my job, everything is ruined," you might say, "I lost my job, and that's painful, but maybe this is also an opportunity to learn something new."
Yes. Notice the difference? The difficult emotion is still there. We're not pretending it disappeared. We're just refusing to let one event become the entire story.
I think that's where genuine optimism begins. Not with fake smiles, but with honest hope. Can I ask everyone listening another question?
Go for it.
Think about someone you admire. Maybe it's a friend, a parent, a teacher, someone you respect. Do you think they've lived a life without disappointment?
Probably not.
Most likely they've experienced failure, rejection, heartbreak, uncertainty, just like everyone else.
The difference often isn't what happened to them. It's how they interpreted what happened.
Exactly. Sometimes resilience isn't about having fewer problems. It's about refusing to let problems become your identity.
There's another habit I've started recently that connects with all of this.
I'd love to hear it.
Every evening, before I go to bed, I ask myself one simple question. What went well today?
That's it?
That's it. Some days the answer is surprisingly small. Maybe I finished reading a chapter. Maybe I had a good conversation. Maybe I finally went for that walk I'd been postponing.
I like that word, postponing. It simply means putting something off until later.
Exactly. What's interesting is that this little habit has changed what I notice during the day.
Because your brain starts looking for answers before bedtime.
Yes. Instead of searching only for problems, it quietly begins collecting moments worth remembering.
That's another example of training your attention.
And attention is powerful. Whatever you repeatedly pay attention to gradually feels bigger.
So maybe positive thinking isn't about convincing yourself life is perfect.
Maybe it's about noticing that life is rarely only one thing.
A difficult day can still include laughter.
A stressful week can still include moments of peace.
A setback can still become a lesson.
And a mistake can still become the beginning of growth.
I think that's a beautiful place to pause before we wrap everything together.
because in a moment, we'll explore one final idea that connects everything we've talked about today. Why the smallest thoughts you repeat every day may quietly shape the person you become.
You know, the more we talk about this, the more I realize that our lives are often shaped by the questions we ask ourselves every day.
That's an interesting observation.
Think about it. If you wake up every morning asking, what's going to go wrong today? Your brain immediately starts searching for evidence.
Exactly. It's almost like giving your brain a mission.
And our brains are surprisingly good at completing the missions we give them.
Psychologists sometimes describe this as selective attention. We notice what we're looking for. Have you ever decided to buy a certain car and suddenly you start seeing that exact model everywhere?
Oh, yes! A few months ago, my cousin bought a blue hatchback. Before that, I hardly noticed them. Now it feels like every third car I see is blue.
The cars were always there. Your attention simply changed.
So the same thing happens with our thoughts?
Very often, yes. If you constantly ask yourself, why am I unlucky? Your brain starts collecting examples that support that belief. If you ask, what opportunity exists here? Your brain begins searching for different evidence.
That's such a powerful shift. Because the world hasn't changed. Your focus has. There's another story I'd love to share.
Go ahead.
A friend of mine started learning English in her 30s. She was incredibly excited during the first few weeks. Then, one day she joined an online conversation group.
Let me guess. She became nervous?
Very. She forgot simple words. She mixed up verb tenses. Someone asked her a question and her mind went completely blank. When she came home, she told herself, I'm terrible at English.
It's a sentence so many learners have said.
Exactly. A week later, we talked again. I asked, how long were you speaking? She said, almost 40 minutes. I smiled. I said, so you communicated in another language for 40 minutes? She looked confused.
Because she hadn't seen it that way.
Not at all. She only remembered the 5 awkward moments. She completely forgot the 39 minutes when people understood her.
That's negativity bias again.
Yes. One uncomfortable memory became bigger than dozens of successful ones.
And I think this applies to far more than language learning. Relationships, careers, parenting, friendships. We often judge ourselves by our mistakes while judging everyone else by their strengths.
Can I share something I've been trying recently?
I'd love to hear it.
Whenever I catch myself thinking something negative about myself, I pause for a second and ask, would I say this to someone I care about?
That's such a simple question.
Most of the time, the answer is no. I would never tell a friend, you're hopeless. You'll never improve. Everyone else is better than you.
Yet, we sometimes say those things to ourselves without even noticing.
Exactly. And here's the interesting part. Being kind to yourself doesn't make you lazy.
I think some people worry that it will.
Research actually suggests the opposite. People who practice self-compassion often recover from setbacks more quickly because they spend less energy attacking themselves.
That makes sense. If all your energy goes into criticism, there isn't much left for growth.
Right. Kindness isn't lowering your standards. It's creating the emotional safety needed to keep improving.
If you're listening today, maybe there's one sentence you've been repeating for months, or even years. I'm too old. I'm too late. I'm not confident. I'm not talented.
We'd like to invite you to do something very simple after this episode. Take a piece of paper, write that sentence down, then ask yourself, is this an absolute fact,
Or is it simply a story I've repeated so many times that it feels true? That's an important difference, because stories can be rewritten.
They can. Not instantly. Not perfectly. But one sentence at a time.
So today we've talked about negativity bias, self-talk, cognitive reframing, neuroplasticity, attention, and self-compassion.
And although those sound like different ideas, they all point to the same truth. Your thoughts are not just reactions to your life. Over time, they become architects of your life.
Positive thinking isn't about pretending every day is wonderful. It's about choosing thoughts that help you move forward instead of keeping you stuck.
Some days, that might simply mean asking a better question. Some days, it might mean taking a short walk. Some days, it might mean speaking to yourself with a little more patience. Small actions, repeated consistently.
Before we finish, we'd like to leave you with one simple challenge. For the next 7 days, spend just 1 minute every evening writing down one thing that went well that day. It doesn't have to be something extraordinary. Maybe you smiled at a stranger, finished a task, called a friend, learned a new English phrase, or simply got through a difficult day.
Those tiny moments matter more than they seem, because every time you notice them, you're gently teaching your brain that life contains more than problems. You're teaching it to notice progress.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We hope this conversation gave you not only a chance to practice your English, but also a different way of looking at your own thoughts.
And remember,
changing your mindset isn't about becoming a different person overnight. It's about making one small intentional choice today, then another tomorrow, and another the day after that. We'd love to hear from you. What's one positive thought or daily habit you'd like to practice this week? Share it with us in the comments. Your story might encourage someone else who's listening. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be patient with your mind. And remember this: the thoughts you repeat become the lens through which you see the world. So choose the ones that help you grow, not the ones that keep you small.